Well, welcome to another episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Stockbridge, and joining me today is Matt Connolly. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt. Matt's got the double buys out. You know it's a good day when the double buys are coming out to play.
Anytime the name comes up, the double buys have to come out. It's an automatic reaction. There we go, yep.
So today's episode is a little bit of a review of the guests that we've already had on the podcast. So the podcast has now been going for a little over a month, and we've been really blessed to have some spectacular people already on the podcast. Carly Gangiel just left just a very, very short time ago, world kickboxing champion, and very fortunate we are to be able to call her a local as well, and a really interesting story that we've just finished off on, which I can't wait to share with the rest of the world around the difficulties of being an elite athlete and a young person and dealing with social media. So that was an amazing story, quite harrowing actually, because you can actually see how that type of social media shitstorm can really affect an athlete at their peak and might lead them to just leaving the sport altogether. It's just amazing. And just a couple of short days ago, we were fortunate enough to have a lengthy conversation with the one and only Steve Maxwell.
Yep, absolutely.
Steve's always amazing. He's great value. And for those that haven't come across Steve already, well, there's if you're a fan of Joe Rogan's podcast, I'm sure you probably have. He's been on there on several occasions already, but was one of those people to introduce Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to North America. I think he was even mentioning that his ex-wife was the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, or number 3 or something like that.
I think he was one of the first few in North America. His wife was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, and his son has actually won 3 world championships in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
And so, and he was just sharing with us all of his wisdom for an hour. It was just amazing.
Oh, you could talk to that guy for days and not still scratch the surface of what he knows. I mean, he started in the 60s, so it was like he's got 50, 60 years worth of knowledge, and he would have seen all those trends that would have started. And, you know, I mean, going with the kettlebells, where this was interesting. He was pushing the kettlebells years ago.
Yeah.
Now he's against the kettlebell.
Well, right up until relatively recently, because I've been very fortunate to be mentored by Steve over the years, and there was my kettlebell collection is exclusively because of Steve Maxwell, and to hear him say, "Get rid of the kettlebells," like, oh no. Okay, so if you see them on Marketplace, very, very shortly, you'll know why. But isn't it interesting how people's philosophies change and evolve over the years as more information becomes available and as their personal experience develops as well? And I know Steve's had several kind of lives in the personal fitness game, and has abided by several different philosophies over the years when it comes to food and training regimes and the like. But to see him now at 68 years of age, he looks amazing. His skin looks amazing. I mean, it's not just physically he looks great, but I mean he looks like a fit, healthy. You won't say young man, but this is a guy that's about as optimal as you're going to get for someone near 70 years of age.
Absolutely. Still training every day, still doing, jiu-jitsu and all sorts of different sport-related stuff. Like he has his routine set. One of the things that I really appreciate and really admire about him is that he is willing to change his mind on different things. I mean, like the kettlebell example, it's like he was like, this is a fantastic training tool and it's effective and it works really well. And now he's come to that realization of, look, this thing might not be as good as what we thought, and I'm not recommending it anymore. Where a lot of people just stick to their guns no matter what.
Yeah, they almost see shame in change, and they don't want to be that guy that's kind of backflipped or whatever. But he's been very open about that, and so great for his mentees, because they're now getting the very best of the information, or the accumulative effect of all of those years of experience distilled in the one man, so that you don't have to. I think this is one of the great things about the modern age, is that you can literally be trained by Steve Maxwell just by sending him an email if you want to. One of the top 100 trainers, strength and conditioning coaches of all time, and he's right there, at the end of your fingertips. If you want to access the information, it's so readily available. There's really no excuse for me.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he did say that he has a couple of openings for people that are looking for personal training advice or to be a client. So if anyone is keen on getting out there and contacting Steve Maxwell and getting into fitness from one of the people who's basically a pioneer of the sport, who's seen 50 years of change, knows the ins and outs, has his routine, and a world champion, and one of the first black belts under the Gracies, which lived at the Gracies place and tells an amazing story. And
and of course his tie-in here is not just through the Gracies and the like, but of course his combat sports pedigree is impeccable, and he was an initial investor in the UFC, to have access to somebody of that caliber is just a wonderful thing about the times that we live in.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the questions I wanted to ask him, but I didn't get a chance to, he's obviously a busy man with a lot of things on his plate, which is great. But I really wanted to know, with the UFC, with the first UFC, they put Royce Gracie, and they deliberately chose Royce because he was the smaller of the brothers of the Gracie family. They wanted to have a smaller guy against these monsters of this different
chemo
exactly, so that they could prove that jiu-jitsu is really effective, and it's for the common person. You don't have to be an enormous freak to be a world champion fighter. When they had their jiu-jitsu, it's like, well, we have our jiu-jitsu techniques which work, and we're going to prove it by putting our smallest guy in. And he did, he won. But what I wanted to know was if he had any little doubt that maybe
that was the
what was going to happen, if he was supremely...
Could they swap him out for Hickson just at the last moment? Yeah.
That's right. Just put a different gi on.
No one will notice.
That's right. To go in there and be like, to have that little bit of doubt, going, what if it doesn't work? What if he doesn't win? You know. So I wanted to hear that, but that's all right. We'll get him back on.
Well, he's offered to be back on, so viewers can look forward to seeing more of Steve Maxwell. And just as a side note, for those people that are watching on the live stream right now, we are now working away feverishly in order to have some of these beautiful moments edited, curated, and uploaded to our YouTube channel. And for those people who are looking to find us on YouTube, there's only a couple of videos up there at the moment. But if you go to our YouTube channel, Daily Combat podcast is the YouTube channel. We'd also encourage people to head over to dailycombatnews.com. As that's our little spot that you can go to register to make sure that you're getting notifications of all the things that we're up to here, special offers with big events coming up. So we're looking forward to working with all of the promoters in the fight game so that we can offer great experiences to fight lovers, regardless of where they might be anywhere in the country, and to provide them with special offers and great experiences in the meantime. All they have to do is jump onto dailycombatnews.com and you'll see there's a little form to fill that out, and we'll make sure that you're getting the very, very best of not just this podcast, but special offers, discounts, and experiences, which we're really looking forward to curating for you.
Absolutely.
So you know what, this whole podcast kind of kicked off with Jordan Biggie Stevens, who's for those that aren't familiar, the Biggie bit might give it away, but is a strong man and has performed at the elite level. So anybody who's watched the Strongest Man in the World contest, there's every chance that you would have seen Jordan Biggie Stevens on the screen at some stage, and he's really become a fixture in the sport, even though he's now retired, because he's kind of seen that. Where he fits in the sport now isn't necessarily performing at a competitive level, but it's more at an entertainment level. It's pulling trains and picking up cars and
usual stuff,
flipping houses or whatever.
Flipping houses.
But that type of thing, and that was really interesting because a couple of our guests so far have been relatively young, like Jordan, 31 years old, competed at a really high level for a really long time, and is now a veteran of the sport at 31 years of age, and has kind of realised for him that he's still got a lot of years left, and where his passion now lies is through his physicality is just entertaining people, bringing smiles to people's faces and giving them a reason to come to some of these really interesting events that you can find Jordan at on almost any given weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. And the same with Carly, being 23, being world champion, and then talking about having retired. I'm like, how are you 23 and you've got all these titles and third Dan black belt in karate, and it's like, oh my God. And Jordan, with his career in strongman, and it's like, oh yeah, I've retired a few years ago, and it's like, aren't you younger than me? Hang on a minute.
I've achieved so little.
Like, my God. Yeah, absolutely.
And then in the same breath, Carly's saying, I've got a real up and coming young guy. He's so good. He's the future. Oh, how old is he? 21. So, 23. It's crazy. But it's what's really cool about all of these people is that even though they might feel like they're at the end of their sporting career as such, they're finding ways of taking all that they've learned and are now really giving back. Whether that be Steve Maxwell, Carly Gangel, or Jordan, it's just it's a wonderful ethic that a lot of elite sports people have, is that when they feel like they've taken so much from a sport, they feel almost compelled to give it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though that sport might have led to a whole range of injuries,
that's right.
broken bones, failed kidneys. Yeah. I really loved having Greg Hearn here, which was what I didn't realise with Greg is that he'd started so late. So like he was the inversion of that. Like he hadn't even stepped into an MMA gym until he was 29 years old, I think he said. And one of his bucket list things was to have a fight by the time he was 30 years old, having never had a fight before. Right. And you so often hear of it's more the traditional path of fighters starting young and graduating through, but he had that dawning realization much later in life, and now is a veteran, but is now almost 40. Looks fantastic. Looks like he could fight for another 5 years if he wanted to.
Yeah, for sure.
And still got huge passion for the sport. After 10 years, and also similarly, kind of perhaps as he's getting towards the end of his career now, seeing the opportunity to give back to his sport by promoting, by getting involved with, being a founder of Diamondback Fighting Championship and really encouraging that next generation of athletes, providing them with a platform so they have every chance of achieving all of their potential.
It's funny, every guest we've had on here is not just, they don't just do that sport. Every one of them has another thing that they do that's involved with that sport. So Carly, with she's now promoting. Same with Greg. I mean, they've got their Diamondback Fighting Championships. Biggie Stevens is he's coaching. So they're still involved in their own sport, but not as the athlete just competing in it. It's like they've found, because they enjoy it so much, and they've found other avenues to sort of expand what they're doing, which is it's strange. I mean, Ryan Bowen as well. I mean, he's not just doing arm wrestling. He's created an entire career through arm wrestling. He's got his YouTube channel. He's promoting events. He's starting clubs. He's traveling around stuff. So for anyone who is doing a sport, I think it's important that they should know that it's not just that competition, or it's not just that sport that will find you happiness in it, because that can get taken away at any moment, especially if it's a combat sport. If you get an injury, that it's a career-ending injury. But there are other avenues you can move into, promotion or commentating, or even just making a YouTube channel and talking about fights or technique or stories, or Chael Sonnen from the UFC. I mean, he tells hilarious stories on UFC. But
absolutely, there's definitely a life after the sport for all of these people, and I don't know if it doesn't seem like they've always planned it. It almost seems like it's just been the next logical step. They've got to that point where they thought, well, I'm going to pull back a little bit from the competitive side of things, and now I'm going to look for ways that I can still contribute to the sport and to the broader community as well. One of the things that struck me a little bit in the conversations that we've been having is the role that social media is now playing in the modern world in combat sports. And to hear Carly's quite harrowing story just a matter of minutes ago, and how she was dealing with something that perhaps she shouldn't have to deal with at all, and I could just imagine that there'd be so many young people that that would hear that story and could see themselves in that story, and then you've got Ryan Bowen, who's built his entire career from social media and dedicated 4 years to it, essentially being ignored, to have that breakthrough moment, and now is one of the most influential people in the world in his chosen sport.
Absolutely.
And is deriving a great income through social media, and now finding different avenues through that. And then to hear Steve Maxwell, who for many years, traveled around the world. He was a global nomad with a 30-litre bag on his back, all of his worldly possessions within that, essentially running his business out of an iPad and coaching people all around the world. And so, technology and social media, I think you might have mentioned, it's very much a double-edged sword. And so from to hear those stories within our guests already just intrigues me. And I'm really interested to see how social media is impacting on our future guests.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. It was funny with Ryan Bowen a couple of months ago. He had his YouTube channel hacked, and not hacked. I think there was some Russians or something.
Some Russians were involved. Russian collusion.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Mueller report had got out, and somehow Ryan Bowen was involved. No, they put copyright claims against his channel, which were false, completely false. But the way that their algorithm is set up, his channel got locked down for a few days. And it was scheduled for deletion based off
the countdown was on, the clock was ticking.
He was lucky enough to be able to get hold of someone at YouTube. They don't have a support you can just reach out to. He had to go through Twitter, and we were sort of pushing the community to also be pushing YouTube to say, hey, you need to look into this. These claims are false, completely false. But for me, I thought, well, what can I do to help him out? And so I made a couple of videos where it was please go and on Twitter and send messages to YouTube and say, this is wrong, please look into the Ryan Bowen situation. But I thought I can go back and I can download all of his videos for him just to
as a backup.
Exactly, because otherwise they'll get wiped. I don't think he had a backup of them. And so I did. I went and downloaded them all, but they were probably from, I think he'd started 8 years ago. And looking at him from 8 years ago, as he referred to himself as, I think, a skinny nerd or something. But he was very different to the way he is now. And it was like, wow, these first maybe 100 videos were skinny Ryan Bowen with 12 views, 5 views, 8 views, 20 views. And it wasn't until he hit this breakthrough moment, and you can see the progression. It was like, while I was downloading these videos, I was like, I can see what he's doing here that's actually making him successful in it. And now, he's getting, thousands of views on his channel, 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. He's talking to John Brzenk, one of the greatest arm wrestlers of all time. He's doing a weekly podcast with him. And so you can use that social media as a tool to create a career, but it does come with a price of you are now faced with criticism from anybody around the world that wants to go and send you a horrible message.
Absolutely. And I think the great advantage for combat sports is that we don't have a mainstream audience. Our audience definitely lives on social media. That's where they're absorbing most of their content when it comes to combat sports. And so just as you may be right now. And so not being a mainstream sport, you don't get the sponsorship dollars. Most people aren't full-time professionals that do what they do, but they can be if they are persistent and they develop a following and they create good content by documenting their experiences. And when you were looking at Ryan Bowen's videos from 8 years ago, you couldn't describe him as being charismatic, but it takes time in front of the camera, and he's developed his particular style. And so now people look at the finished product very much and then think, oh, he's really polished and the like, but they haven't gone back and looked at Ground Zero for Ryan Bowen 8 years ago with 3 views. things, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what's so interesting about having that library available on YouTube is that you can actually just see where did somebody start, and it's always sort of fun or interesting to find a channel that somebody's charismatic, they're interesting, they're presenting something well, and it's like, I wonder how they started. Like, let me go back to the earliest video, and it's, you know, terribly flat screen video with terrible audio, and now you can't see what they're doing, and and the progression, you can see the progression of professionalism as it goes through, which is, I mean, what we're trying to do with our stuff. So
yeah,
you know, we're pushing this and hoping to get really good guests on, which I think we've had some awesome moments with people so far. So we're continuing that, and you know, we've got some amazing promoters here in South Australia with Craig Ike and you know, Diamondback and Carly Gangel with her Pride events as well. So I mean, that's what Carly was just saying before she left here. We've got to get this guy on. He's an up and comer, and to have this platform here, which, you know, is just us chatting in a room. But it's you know, an available media for him to come and share his story, and we'll find out about the stories that he can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I really hope you're enjoying these conversations that we've been having with some of these wonderful personalities that have got so much to share. And if you haven't already done so, then head over to dailycombatnews.com. Register now. You certainly won't regret it. You'll get the absolute latest from us. And, you know, check us out on socials. We've got the YouTube channel going. We've got the live streams that have been uploaded to that. And we're going to have clips and special moments coming to the YouTube channel very, very soon. So I'm Dave Stockbridge.
Matt Connolly.
And we'll look forward to bringing you more soon.